Okay, so I want to make a case for buying kit lenses, and not just this one, but this one, which just arrived in the mail today from Japan. I think you'll be surprised at which one I'm talking about, especially for my full-frame Sony ZV-E1. So let me show you visual evidence at why I can highly recommend both of these kit lenses. Here, let me show you. Okay, so before I get to the contents of this box, I want to mention this compact but highly controversial kit lens that first debuted with the A7C, which is how I came about owning it. Whereas the previous full-frame kit lens, the 28-70 f3.5 to 5.6 OSS lens, which you got with the A7 III and you're still getting with the A7 IV, has merits of its own, like having optical steady shot as well as being as sharp as it is versatile. Yeah, it is good, but it's massive and would have looked silly on the A7C. So Sony developed this 28-60 f4 to 5.6, which they have now also packaged with the Sony ZV-E1, a camera meant for vloggers. So you can probably piece together what might be the issue there. Although you're also going to be seeing why it's also sort of great. And with the A7C as a hybrid camera, it sort of makes sense, yet I bought it and barely used it. Yet with the ZV-E1, I didn't initially recommend people getting it with my lens buying guide, but I've actually been using it quite a bit because I bought the ZV-E1 specifically as my travel camera so I can keep my FX3 on sticks rigged up and I can pocket my B cam and take it on the go. And that 28-60 is a great lens to keep attached to the camera for its versatility. So I'd been traveling with this and the Rokinon 18mm f2.8 as my go-to ultra wide for vlogging. So two compact travel lenses which nicely fit into my camera sling, and I can easily swap lenses out to basically have like a 18-60mm range. But I was still hoping to find just one lens, one compact zoom, and one that zooms more smoothly, and I'd love it if it had optical steady shot like the 28-70. So one lens that I could travel with a versatile focal range and that I can vlog on. And that seems like an impossible ask, but then I remember Sony makes this guy. So like I said, this box came from Japan, and I bought this from a website Buy for a few reasons, one of which it was stupidly cheap. And if you don't know Buy, it's like a Japanese eBay, sort of, but more specifically, it's a proxy purchasing service that allows you to buy items from Japanese e-commerce sites and ship those items to destinations all over the world. So since most camera manufacturers, like almost all camera brands from Sony, Canon, Fujifilm, Nikon, Leica, Panasonic, and more are Japanese brands, which if you think about it, it's sort of crazy that they're all there, all in Japan. But anyway, I just wanted to see if purchasing camera gear directly from Japan might either be cheaper, which typically it wouldn't be without Bai, or if I might find some rare gems, albeit cameras or interesting vintage lenses, or just whatever. And yeah, they do. So I saw this guy for like 60,000 yen, which is the equivalent of like $40. So I placed a bid and I won. And the shipping was ridiculously fast. I think it was like a week or under. But that was like $25. Yet all in all, that was $65. So now to be fair, I placed bids on a bunch of things and I didn't win. But like on eBay, you can also just buy it outright or play the bidding game and hope to get some deals like I did. And again, there's a bunch of stuff on there that seemingly you can only get in Japan, not just camera stuff, but literally anything. So yeah, check out Bai. They are the sponsor of this video, but honestly, I don't usually do sponsored videos, and I only did this after I bought this lens because it was so cheap and the delivery was so easy to use. Now, there is a learning curve with trying to navigate the search engine, but I have a link in the description for a coupon code below if you want to see what they have, or you want to buy this guy. So this may be the tiniest zoom lens in the world, the APSC 16-50 f3.5 to 5.6 with OSS, optical steady shot, and one more feature, the real reason I picked it up. But this throwaway kit lens that comes with almost all Sony APS-C cameras, including the brand new A6700, this lens, which is ancient in terms of Sony lenses, still on my Sony ZV-E1, works fantastic, which must be why in 2023 they are still shipping cameras out with it. But the question you have is probably to do with vignetting. But if you've seen any of my other videos, specifically the best lenses for the Sony ZV-E1, you may recall that I used a bunch of APS-C lenses on it because with dynamic active stabilization, which crops in roughly 30%, you get barely any vignetting. And if you do at 16mm at its widest, you can still zoom in past the vignetting and not just manually zoom in like I have to do with my 10-18 APS-C lens, but with my main feature, the main selling point of this lens for me, other than the zoom range, well, so like I said, I initially bought my Sony a7C with a kit lens in a bundle because it was like $200 extra, which for any lens is a great deal, let alone a compact zoom. And after hearing many detractors dumping on the 28-60, I was pleasantly surprised because of not just how well it performs, but how clean and sharp it was, especially for a travel lens with a versatile zoom range. So sure, it's too tight to vlog on, unlike the 16-50, which I will get to that, but since I picked up the ZV-E1, I've been traveling with it, and that 60mm with clear image zoom or in crop mode, that 60mm becomes like a 90mm. So you really get a full frame 28-90. Yeah, this is my main complaint with the 28-60, is how unusable it is while zooming with video. Now, I don't know if I've ever been able to nail a smooth push-in or pull out in video. You really have to pick a focal length and just stick with it, because the rate at which you can either zoom in or out cannot be done with even the steadiest hand in any consistently usable way. So that's where PZ on this guy comes in. So this 16-50 not only has an OSS in its name, it has PZ for power zoom. And as you can see on the side, it also has a zoom rocker for smooth push-ins and zoom outs. Yeah, the ZV-E1, just like my FX3, they have zoom rockers in the front, which normally I only use for clear image zoom, whereas now it can operate the power zoom, which is brilliant. So imagine if Sony could make a full frame, compact and affordable power zoom kit lens. Well, that'd be the dream, but even if they could, I still can't imagine it would also have optical steady shot, or on top of that, starting as wide as 16mm, which is also crazy because now I don't need to pack two lenses as I get my zoom and my ultra wide for vlogging. So check this out. Okay, so now I've got the 16-50 with dynamic stabilization on the Sony ZV-E1. Now, I'm not going to pretend that this is the best lens for the Sony ZV-E1 or that you don't get major vignetting, especially when you're panning. Now, one thing you can do with that is, well, not pan, or you can do in post what is pretty much the easiest thing to do, which is crop in like 104% for those shots where you do pan a little bit too much. Now, dynamic stabilization in general can get sort of jumpy when you do that, so I tend to try not to pan, especially when I'm zooming in and out with a power zoom. Now, again, this lens is not the best APS-C lens either, but it is one of the smallest, and it is for when I want to take the family on a quick trip to, say, Universal or the beach, and I'm not trying to get the best possible footage. I am just trying to capture the moment. So look, again, we've got our vignetting in the back. I'm all the way out at 16, but I can punch into about, say, 23 right now, and I'm at 23, and you're going to get much less vignetting, and it's still wide enough to vlog on, and I can turn the camera around and get extra reach. The only reason you really want to bring a full frame lens with you is if you're using S&Q mode. Now, I did try to use S&Q mode with this power zoom with sort of hilarious results, and you'll see I sort of love it. It sort of went for this little open gate 8mm look, very vintage, very fun. I was almost going to delete the footage, then I realized how sort of cool it was, and I just wanted to show it to you. But you typically do want a full frame lens if you're using S&Q mode, but for vlogging, I'm not sure you do like the 28-60. Here, I'll show you what the 28-60 looks like while trying to vlog on. Okay, so this is Sony's 28-60 f4 to 5.6 kit lens, which is a really great lens overall for how affordable and lightweight it is. This is far too cropped in for the dynamic stabilization. Again, a great lens, but I do not recommend getting it if you plan to vlog on this as much as you're supposed to with a Sony ZV-E1. So interesting, but I cannot recommend that. Okay, so like in my other video where I tested out a bunch of other APS-C lenses, I think this one holds its own because of its reach, because I can go all the way back to 16 or crop in a little bit. Now I think I'm at 20, which is pretty good for sort of walking and talking, unlike the other 20. Here, let me show you. So again, if you haven't seen my other videos, it's worth noting that even a wide angle lens like my 20 f1.8 with dynamic stabilization on the Sony ZV-E1 is still a bit tight. So having something wider like maybe the Viltrox 16mm f1.4, which is massive, or my Sigma 16mm f1.4, which I love, but it's also chunky. So look at the size difference. So with this 16, I can legit vlog on it. And sure, it's only f3.5, but sometimes having a super fast lens like an f1.4, you also need a massive variable neutral density filter, which just even adds more weight and size. And I'm really trying to keep the ZV-E1 as compact as possible. So the fact that I can vlog on it with dynamic stabilization's crop is nuts. So remember that crop is roughly 30%. So really you're effectively getting a 20mm to 65mm. But again, why this looks even smoother is because remember, this lens has optical steady shot along with a power zoom. So this to me is a no-brainer, especially for $65. And I hope I've made my case for buying these kit lenses, but especially this cheap pancake zoom as a one and done travel lens. So go on Buy and see if there are any great deals on them, or if there are deals on any of these other 6 lenses that I recommend for the ZV-E1 or any Sony really. Now, thank you for your time and attention. I have a bunch more videos about videos like this on the way, so consider following along and subscribing. All right, thanks guys, bye.